To begin with, sir, today's topic is From Passion to Purpose, understanding and sharing your insights on transforming the energy sector. And no better leader than you to begin with. So, my first question will be, sir, what aspects of the energy sector fuel your passion, and how did your journey lead you to your current role?
Thank you, Parikshit. Thank you. I would really want to start with a backdrop, and I would want to say that this energy is been in existence and is the cause for the survival and even the initiation of this whole srishti, as you say so. So if we get up in the morning, you know what? Why do we get up? It's because that energy in us wakes us up. You know what? If this energy level drops below a certain level, as you normally see in case of those guys who are on the expedition or those who are on mountaineering, if that energy level drops below a level, the people actually sleep the sleep of the dead. I mean, they can't get up more. So what do you do? What do we do then in that cases is massage their hands and feet. To do what? To give them warmth, to give them that energy that is needed for them for survival.
Okay.
You know what? These guys, these turtle, birds, migratory birds, why do they do so? To keep themselves in at in sync with the nature, so that their body is having sufficient energy within. All that I wanted to say is energy is one of the most crucial matter. It's one of the most important reason for all of us to survive. It's been there in this dictionaries. It's become the staple of the 21st century dictionaries. But you know what? This term was coined out of the Greek term, which is known as energia, and was created by Aristotle in 324 BC, way back. And you know what? This explains the state of being at work. That's energy. Energy per se in the form, if it is static energy, if it is potential energy, it doesn't hold any value. It has to be at work. It has to be doing something. So per se energy might not really work, but it may not be something which is important, but the energy services that we use for comforting, lighting, mobility, communication, and all, which is more important. And rightly so, if you look at the entire civilization has been in existence and tied up with the various forms of energy mastery. 5 lakh years back, it was about the fire control. 12,000 years back, it was about the storage of food, extended usage of electricity and the form of heat in terms of storage. 1,000 years back, it was into explosives. 250 years back, it was the Industrial Revolution, I.1. So that harnessing of the power. And in the last century, it was the nuclear bomb, nuclear energy, nuclear power, which was harnessed for the usage. So I'm just trying to bring out energy wasn't so lucrative, wasn't so meaningful till I really joined this portfolio. And when I joined this portfolio, I began to do a lot of passive reading, a lot of active reading. A lot of material began to come through automatically for me to gain insights. And these are the things that I really began to enjoy after having come into the sector. Prior to this, I've been into consulting as a part of consulting for most part of the career, a decade and a half. I was doing consulting, business process analysis, implementing tools to bring out process automation at things like a shop floor, project sites, corporate offices, doing automation, bringing out automation, including digitization of various departments. Earlier there used to be, I started my career way back in the times when ledgers were still being written, and the ERP implementations were the taste of the rich, taste of the people who really wanted to bring out, give their workforce meaningful life to them. I have gone through times where people were scared and they used to tell me, Vikas, if I can learn this, I can save my job because I've got 3 daughters to get married. So those are the times when ERP, MRP, then terms like MES2 and all of that has started coming up. So automation of departments like HR, admin, accounts, marketing, finance, projects, site offices, uh, manufacturing plants, shop floors. Quality was being implemented through systems like BAN and SAP, and we had bonded warehouses where manufacturing goods were to be automated in terms of identifying the batches to which they belong from a customer success perspective, tracing the final deliverable to the batch where there might probably be a defect, or tracing it for some quality issues. So net, it was basically bringing about all my internal and external stakeholders in a single consolidated company view. And then I decided to change the tables. I switched over and came to the end user community, where I began to use the technology, not just implement and get away with it. So as the guy who was actually responsible earlier to implement technology and do go away with it, you don't want to implement it, so be it. My money is received and I have done my uh, bit of it in terms of implementing, doing process analysis, implementing systems, handing it over to you. And after I do a sign off, who knows? I mean, I don't know who you are and you don't know who I am. If you pay me money later, I'll again come back and be happy to do the implementation. But then I decided to move over to this side of the table. So that's been my journey from the consulting times to the time that I have come today.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, so beautifully put, I would say, from the past and the present and how you are looking at. So, thank you so much, sir, for sharing this insight, which was very well crafted from your end.
Thanks.
Okay, so my next question would be, sir, how do you feel Hiranandani Energy is contributing to the ambition to make net zero possible?
Oh yes, the most talked about word, net zero,
Yes, sir.
resonates. Everybody is talking about the whole thing, and I think the recently concluded summit in Dubai, the conference, global conference that happened in Dubai a week earlier, precisely 7 days before it concluded, last last Wednesday, 13th of December, the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP28, which concluded, probably was more significant than, I mean, in many ways, more very relevant from the current times. If we just go back a little bit again into the basics of what was the genesis of COP28, it has a very large implication. It has a very large cause. It has a very large, in terms of, it has a very large, I would say, reason to be worried about. Today, more than 10,000 years of continuous and accelerating progress, if you look at that, the human civilization has been going through, it has come to a threatening state. The very condition that the whole progress was brought about by has come to a standstill. You know what is the reason for this entire development that has been coming up over last 10,000 years? It's that our Earth's climate, the planet before and the planet after, did not have that conducive environment for the life survival. It was only available on our mother planet Earth, which had been giving and giving and giving without questioning anything. And today, that stability of Mother Earth itself, is threatened because of the massive pace of progress that has come up since the time from the Neolithic age, passing through the developmental cycles to the Industrial Revolution. Today, we are at a stage where probably there is a point of inflection. We don't know whether we have to continue the development, or we have to continue or we have to begin to save our environment. There's a big dilemma. Why should we be sacrificing one for the other? the population explosion has happened to such an extent that we do not know how to feed all of these people in this universe. And hence, there is a big thing of how to handle the situation. The net zero in a plain simple terms is very simply written as greenhouse gas emissions are not counterbalanced by the removals. Today we are producing much more than what we are eliminating by use of various actions, conscious, subconscious. Trees are doing their own bit, we are doing our own bit, but somewhere the production is happening of these gases, of these emissions is happening, which is at a far more pace than what is supposed to be there. So today's net zero condition is skewed and the challenges are unsolved. I'll tell you, I've been reading through quite a few of these research journals and publications, and very clearly says that the world today is unprepared to complete this net zero transition. And I wouldn't want to really say so, the reason being that we have concluded the summit in a big hope to solve the whole of this. But believe me, the kind of investment that is required between today and 2050, which is the ultimate culmination and start of a net zero state, is about $250 trillion. That's the magnitude of investment that would be required. If you're looking at that kind of investment in 25 years, imagine the kind of money that is going to go in year on year basis. It's about a 10 trillion every year basically. So the kind of the pace at which this development has to happen will itself be so fast that can we really think of innovations in those lines and put them to a commercial use and begin to eliminate my earlier expenditure that has already happened? It's really a big question. And so if you look at the whole thing, the researchers are saying, the studies are saying that even if all the net zero commitments and the climatic pledges are fulfilled, the 1.5 degree centigrade Celsius thing that we're talking about so proudly, about you realize that this is about what we're talking about is COP28 is about maintaining 1.5 degree by 2050 above the pre-industrial levels. So when talking about such a thing, even if everything is fulfilled, this 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial area might be a distant dream still. And this is going to create a most catastrophic impact of the climate change, including the biotic feedback loops. You remember these? So these are these cycles which are self-resolutory for a net zero equation. Again, when they are challenged, but the economic development, inclusive growth cannot be put at risk. So these are the things that are going to be a lot of challenge. There has to be, what is required is we have to have a careful balance between the short-term risk. Now currently we are poorly prepared and uncoordinated state, but that has to be balanced out with a longer-term risk of insufficient and delayed action. So if we do not act, if we do not invest that much, if we do not want to be out of our slumber to be ready with a net zero in 2050, so there has to be a balance. Then what is going to be impacted is the entire scenario is changed. Whereas COP28 has declared that to COP29 what is going to be the action plan, and COP30 what has to be done. So Brazil and Azerbaijan are ready with those kind of laid out plans where the world has to commit what they are going to be using from 2025 onwards. So There has to be a it's a very clear, it's a very thin line between what has to be done and what has to be avoided. And if we look at the disorderly transition, then that could impair the energy supply and affect the energy access itself affordably to many people in this whole universe. So, I mean, the challenges, the risk are phenomenal. But at the same time, we got to do something that is going to help us move towards a net zero. It actually means a big transformation to the world economy. And you know what? There are, I mean, these power industry, the mobility segments, the buildings that are, that are being created to suffice the entire population, the agriculture, the forestry, and the waste that is generated. There is so much of wastage creation which happens. There is so much of carbon dioxide emissions which are there, that it is actually required in the first place to use these facilities to generate employment, to generate the feeding mechanism to the new population that's going to come up. At the same time, that investment has to be for the newer technologies where these emissions, these kind of consumptions are reduced to a larger extent. But not withstanding all of these, I mean, these are broader claims. These are the claims which the world is already getting into. But we have been doing our own bit of thing. So, from our own organization perspective, if you look at, our travels are drastically reduced. We've done investment in a big time collaboration suites, which allows us to stay indoors, work from home, not travel on roads as much as possible, and even if we are traveling, we might do it for necessities, not merely for a punching and swiping from a HR perspective. But then there are ways to trace people in terms of why somebody is offline and things like that. Those are being put in place. So we are doing our own bit. We have got a plant which is out at Ratnagiri. We are doing social, for the social cause. We are taking up a lot of initiatives to train and teach people in terms of why and how should they conserve energy. We've been planting trees, more than 10,000 we have done in last year or so. We've been encouraging people to go veggie. We've been telling them to buy energy efficient appliances. We're telling them to switch off lights when it's not in use, putting your ACs at a 24-25 degrees Celsius so that you don't consume so much of light and electricity. That's what we can really do. Then you look at the replacement of bulbs with the LEDs and all of that. So these are the few things that we've been doing as a part of our own initiatives, organization initiatives, and teaching and telling people how to really go ahead and still do their own bit. So the thing is, Parikshit and the team, is that this net zero is not something that I can do with my own self. There has to be a broader engagement of the entire population, the entire universe. Otherwise, we can't contain the temperature of 1.5 degree in my own way. There has to be the involvement of the entire society. The entire universe has to work towards it. And that's how we are trying to do our own bit of thing, which really can save our planet for the future. We stopped using tissue papers at our offices, so we don't use too much of them, at least from our own perspective. I have been teaching my kids not to use, or use as little as possible. Take food only that much that is required for you, for your stomach. Not take more and dump in the dustbin. There are lots of people who really go without food to the bed. But then whatever, we can't really cater to all that necessities of the universe, but whatever we can do is what something that should be taken care of and well taken care of.
Got it, sir. I mean, very well said, sir. I mean, you went into the core of what is the problem statement and how Hiranandani Energy and you as an individual is contributing by going on to the basics, by educating the society.
Thanks, sir. I mean, we all got to do our own bit. The
Yes.
universe is so vast that unless and until we take our own responsibilities, it's very difficult to bring out a change. And the thing is, if you look at the entire population of more than a trillion or so, when begins to take this effort, this is what is going to show up, because the effort then is not multiplied, it's exponential by the power, by the number of people who are going to be sitting at the exponential count. So that is what is going to show up and bring about a net zero, in case we want to do it very very seriously by 2050 or whatever. So even if it doesn't happen by 2050, if it happens by 2070, which is our next deadline, but I think a move in the right direction will be the best way to at least start thinking. And that would really initiate, that will force many other people to start thinking and start doing things, which will generate a lot of positive impact. At the same time, it will undo the issues, it will undo the wrongs that we had already committed and done earlier.
No, very rightly said, sir. I mean, you focused on collaboration. You focused on ownership, where each and individual has to take a stand towards conserving the planet, because
Absolutely.
the Earth has been giving and giving and giving, but
Yeah.
not asking anything in return. So, very rightly said, sir. Very rightly said.
True.
Okay, sir. The last question for the day would be, how do you see the future of energy?
Parikshit, if we look at again all of the things that we discussed and the hope that we have in terms of COP 28, 29, and 30, and the way things are just bringing up, say in COP 29, it's all the finance that has to be aligned to the newer technologies, the beginning of the startups in this in this newer domain, and then 30 talking about how the adoption of these technologies is going to happen across the countries, and looking at the response of more than 145 countries or maybe 155 countries out of 190 gives us a impact that more than 70%, if they are committing. And in anything, if you look at the entire scenario, 80-20 is what we are very well aware of. Not more than 80% will anyways respond to the change that is going to be happening and will not participate. I mean, the 20% will never participate. We will never be participative in any kind of initiative that is going to be taken up. So if you look at from that perspective, it's good enough, well said, that 80% of the population is upbeat about the whole thing. And given the scenario, given the way we have been harnessing energy from the Neolithic times, from even prior to that times when the universe was getting formed, it's the energy which is the driving force behind the whole process, whether it is carving out of the planets, whether it is hit of the asteroids, whether it is the rains, all is a phenomena of the energy, its usage, its conservation. And I think in the near time to come, the best part would also be not only the best utilization of energy, to conserve energy, which I think is going to be the next best phenomena, which is probably going to take up. So storage, I'm sure a lot of us are aware of the newer semiconductors that are getting prepared from storage perspective. So even a small film on your hand can really be a power saver, can be a savior of a power. So I think the solar, the newer ways of generating electricity in terms of geomagnetic, in terms of hydel, in terms of solar, in terms of any other uh, uh, non-renewable or something, not non-renewable, in terms of energy sources which are existent forever, something like a solar and a wind, are going to be driving the development. And more than that, it is going to be the conservation basically. So if you decide to move on the effective utilization of resources and not going on to say fossil or something like that, so these renewable forms of energy, its storage will really drive the way the whole thing can work. So there was a article which I was reading some 4 quintillions of energy is transmitted by sun in, I think, a day. But if we can harness it for an hour, it will suffice for a humankind for more than a month or something like that. So much of energy is available in so much of plenty, so much of abundance, that probably we just need to have the right technology to harness that. And once that harnessing, which is actually now harnessing and storage, that is now being very, very strongly focused upon, I'm sure once that is put in place, the entire energy universe will be self-sufficient. I think there were articles earlier which were talking about zero loop and never, I mean, non-degenerating circuit loops, which will have zero dissipation out of the whole circle or a loop where the electricity is circulated. So those things will really become a phenomena of an object of, I mean, those will be the phenomena of desire in the future, which will be self-sustaining, which will be self-governing and non-dissipatory. So those are the way we can really go ahead and conserve electricity, conserve energy for not only our usage, but also for the usage for the humankind. So once the energy is available in abundance, a lot of this can be really used for extraterrestrial expansions as well. So while we are looking at only territorial expansions right now within the planets, there can be extraterrestrial terrestrial explorations which really now are lacking because of the way the energy can the energy gets exhausted much earlier, so they are not able to get on those extraterrestrial expansions. But I think once that comes into place, once the suffice begins at our own planet, a lot of these can be exploited for those kind of benefits as well, so the resources can be utilized much better. That is what I feel is the scope of the energy right now.